The 2025 NFL Draft is right around the corner, and we're starting to get a good idea of where certain guys are going to get drafted and how teams view them, especially quarterbacks. Cam Ward is the clear top guy in the class, and Shedeur Sanders isn't quite regarded as high as we once originally thought. So who will the second quarterback off the board be? Well, it might just be Jaxson Dart out of Ole Miss. He was fun to watch in college and played well at the SEC level. He'd make sense to go high or just be a great second round pickup in value like how Will Levis was for the Titans after he slipped. Dart is a bit of an unknown for sure, but he could either sneak up to the first round or even be a great second round guy. He's proven that he can develop and play at a high level. But let's take a second to rewind back to the beginning. Jaxson Dart was born on May 13th, 2003 and grew up in Kaysville, Utah. He went to Roy High School for 3 years and then transferred to Corner Canyon High School in Draper, Utah, which clearly worked out really well for him. He was incredible as a senior. He passed for 4,691 yards and a state record 67 touchdowns with only 4 picks. He even rushed for 1,195 yards and 12 touchdowns on the ground. He was the Gatorade Football Player of the Year and the Max Preps National Player of the Year. In high school as a whole, he passed for 10,688 yards and 117 touchdowns. He was even a 2-time All-State selection for baseball as a third baseman. He was listed as a 4-star recruit, the number 13 quarterback in the class, with Quinn Ewers being at the top, and the number 2 player in the state. He had plenty of big-time offers, notably BYU, Arizona State, and USC. He decided to commit to USC and committed to be the backup to Keaton Slavis. Well, Slavis got hurt against Washington State on September 18th, and Dart got his chance. He came in and threw for 391 yards, a USC debut record by the way, 4 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and a blowout win over Washington State. He took over for the starter on November 20th against UCLA and had some tough battles from there on out, losing 3 straight to the Bruins as Dart threw for 325 yards, a touchdown and 2 picks, and a 62-33 loss, then the number 13 BYU, and then to Cal. It was an odd season for USC, who fired Clay Helton after 2 games, and then Dante Williams was the interim. But then everything changed when the Trojans hired Lincoln Riley, who brought over Caleb Williams with him, so Dart entered the transfer portal. He was a 4-star transfer and the number 3 quarterback in the class behind Caleb and Ewers. He committed to play at Ole Miss under Lane Kiffin. And safe to say, much like in high school, it worked out for him. As a sophomore, Dart passed for 2,974 yards, 20 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions, while also rushing for 614 yards and a touchdown. He had some pretty good performances, like throwing for 3 touchdowns against Texas A&M, but the game that really stuck out was against Vanderbilt. He threw for 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions with 448 yards. Yes, 448 yards. They crushed Vandy, and that was a very wild state line. They picked up a win against number 7 Kentucky and were actually 7-0. It was quite the start, but then they lost 5 of 6 to end the year, including to number 9 Alabama, and then lost in the Texas Bowl to Texas Tech and Tyler Shuck 42-25. It was a good year that ended in a pretty disappointing way, but at least that was only the beginning for Dart and Oxford, which takes us to 2023. It was a great season for Ole Miss. They went 11-2 and 6-2 in the SEC and won the Peach Bowl against number 10 Penn State. The Rebels picked up ranked wins over number 24 Tulane and number 13 LSU along with Penn State. Their only 2 losses were to number 13 Alabama and number 2 Georgia. Ole Miss was super competitive and finished the year as the number 9 team in the country. They were no joke, and Dart was a big reason why. He threw for 3,364 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 5 interceptions, and rushed for 391 yards and 8 touchdowns. 2024 was the last ride for Dart at Ole Miss, and it really did end up being his best season in college after all. He passed for 4,279 yards and 29 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, and rushed for 495 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Rebels started off 4-0 in the non-conference slate, but life immediately got tougher once the SEC portion came around. They lost a tight game to Kentucky to start conference play, and then after crushing South Carolina 27-3, they had to face number 13 LSU. It was a wild game, but the Tigers pulled it out 29-26 in overtime. Ole Miss did respond with 3 straight wins to get to 8-2 and 4-2 in conference play that included a wild win over number 2 Georgia 28-10. Ole Miss got a bye after and really had to win out, and naturally they then lost to Florida. Ole Miss ended up going 10-3 and 5-3 in conference play with a win over Duke in the Gator Bowl that Dart did play in and threw for 404 yards and 4 touchdowns. Definitely a bit of help to his draft stock. Dart was named first team All-SEC and later played in the Senior Bowl. He left Ole Miss as the all-time program passer, passing Eli Manning's record of 10,119 yards. Jaxson Dart is projected to go either in the first round or the second round. NFL analyst Lance Zierlein gave him an NFL comparison of Gardner Minshew, which, makes some sense. He had the 3rd best production score of any quarterback at the combine and the 8th best athleticism score. Altogether, he came in 4th for total score. The NFL gives him a 6.17 prospect grade, which lists him as a good backup with the potential to develop into a starter. So not exactly some super high praise. He fits a solid quarterback build at 6'2", 223 pounds. He isn't some kind of physical specimen, but he is talented. He's pretty accurate and can be a bit boring, but does what he has to do. At the next level, he'll definitely have to be better with his anticipation and be more decisive, but he can definitely pass at a pro level. He'll just need to actually adjust to the next level. And then there's the mobility. Watching him in college, he wasn't exactly a mobile quarterback, but if he needed to run, he absolutely could and will pick up yardage. I'd honestly think of a Brock Purdy or Dak Prescott kind of guy outside of the pocket. Dart can do it for sure, but he won't be looking to. The question now becomes, what places make sense for Jaxson Dart to land? There are a lot of options, really, that make a lot of sense. This is a weaker quarterback draft for sure, and there are going to be some teams that really need a quarterback and will reach on a guy like Dart. The Dolphins are honestly a team that seem really interesting to me. There are a lot of questions when it comes to Tua Tagovailoa and just how long he'll stick around in Miami. He's dealt with obviously a ton of concussions and other issues, and just probably hasn't been good enough when he's been on the field anyways. Not to say he hasn't been good at all, but at some point the Dolphins might want to move on, and Dart is a guy that might only take a second rounder and have a lot of upside. We can finally see what gets to happen when Mike McDaniel gets to develop his guy from scratch, and hopefully Tyreek Hill is still there with Jalen Waddle to have some talent around a rookie quarterback. The Saints are another obvious one, who are in pretty much purgatory, having to deal with at least one more year of Derek Carr, if not more. They have some good playmakers like Chris Olave when he's on the field and Rashid Shaheed, but they're already planning to move on, I'd bet. Plus, Dart would be just the 3rd Ole Miss quarterback drafted. There was Eli Manning and also Archie Manning, who was drafted by the Saints. The Jets could also draft him too. They need a quarterback. There really isn't much else to say there. It's not great for the Jets, but it's a new era with Aaron Glenn, so they have to be in consideration for any quarterback, but it's not pretty. Finally, the Seahawks and Steelers, who made that big DK Metcalf trade, are both in the process of figuring out quarterback, especially long term. I think it'll still be Aaron Rodgers at some point for the Steelers, but even if it isn't, they will need an actual young quarterback for the future, and it would be nice to have someone like Dart to learn. As for the Seahawks, Sam Darnold getting signed is clearly just a band-aid solution for now, and they need a guy for the future. With all that being said, it could really be anywhere for Dart, and it feels like he could go just about anywhere in the draft too. But at the end of the day, he's an interesting prospect. He was good in college and was expected to be, and now heading into the NFL, it really depends on who you talk to about how he's viewed. But really, it's clear that he has talent. It's going to take the right situation for him to develop and have success, but it could happen.